So what if the people you trust the most are actually the ones most likely to betray you? We're about to dive into a piece of wisdom that honestly cuts against everything we're taught about loyalty. It's a stark, kind of counterintuitive rule for navigating the world of power. And it's brutally simple. Never, ever put too much trust in friends and learn how to use your enemies.
Okay, so what exactly is this dangerous law? Well, you can think of it as a two-part strategy, and it really forces you to question your most basic assumptions about who you can truly rely on when the stakes get high.
The first part is a straight up warning. You gotta be cautious with those closest to you. And you might be asking why? Because friendship itself is the perfect breeding ground for envy. The moment you promote a friend, you completely upset the delicate balance of that relationship. They can start to feel entitled, maybe a little resentful, and they're far more likely to betray you out of a hidden sense of insecurity. Now, here's where it gets really strategic, the part that feels even more unnatural. The law suggests that a former enemy, someone you actually win over to your side, will often be way more loyal than a lifelong friend. And the reason is simple, but it's powerful. They have everything to prove. They don't take your trust for granted, and they will work tirelessly to show you that you made the right call. And listen, this isn't some new, cynical idea. For centuries, really shrewd observers of human nature, guys like Voltaire, they understood this dynamic perfectly. They knew that the predictable threat of an open enemy is often way less dangerous than the hidden, corrosive envy of a so-called friend. To really see what happens when this law is tragically ignored, we have to look at a story from history. It's a pretty dark tale about a Byzantine emperor whose greatest virtue, his unwavering loyalty to a friend, ended up becoming his fatal flaw.
Okay, this timeline shows a really horrifying progression. It all starts with this guy, Basilius, a humble stable groom who saves the Emperor Michael III's life. Michael, just filled with gratitude, elevates him to head of the royal stables and showers him with gifts, education, the whole 9 yards. And pretty soon, friendship completely clouds his judgment. Michael makes Basilius his chief counselor, passing over way more qualified men. But this proximity to power, it awakens something dangerous. Basilius convinces Michael to murder his own uncle, just so he can become head of the army. And the final, brutal step? Basilius murders the very man who gave him everything and seizes the throne for himself.
Michael's mistake was just profound. He believed friendship and gratitude were these unbreakable contracts. He literally staked his life and his entire empire on the idea that a friend who owed him everything would be eternally loyal. Instead, he created a monster by letting that friend taste power. And that blindness cost him absolutely everything. It's a crucial question, right? Is this kind of betrayal just inevitable? Well, to answer that, we're going to turn to another emperor who faced the exact same problem, but chose a radically different and far more successful path. Now, let's look at a leader who really understood the game, Emperor Song of China. He inherited a throne surrounded by powerful generals, his supposed friends, who were really just a pack of wolves waiting for the perfect moment to pounce. He knew the pattern of betrayal all too well. But Sung's strategy was nothing short of brilliant. First, he completely neutralized the threat from his so-called friends. He gathered his generals for a big feast and laid out two paths for them, a life of constant, anxious plotting and a pretty good chance of being executed, or a peaceful retirement with immense riches and honor. They all chose the riches, of course. So, with his inner circle secure, he then turned to his actual enemies. Instead of executing captured rebel kings who had actively plotted against him, he spared them. He showed mercy where they expected nothing but death. And that single act transformed them from bitter enemies into his most loyal and grateful allies. Their loyalty wasn't built on flimsy feelings, it was built on proven strength. And this just brilliantly illustrates the difference. On one hand, you have Michael III, who based his power on fuzzy, friendly feelings. He showered one guy with unearned favors and ended up creating the rival who murdered him. On the other hand, you have Emperor Sung, who based his power on mutual self-interest. He strategically retired his friends and put his former enemies to work, creating fiercely loyal vassals and a dynasty that lasted for 300 years. So what is going on here psychologically? Why does our gut feeling about friendship so often fail us in the world of work and strategy and power? Let's break down the hidden mechanics. This is the critical question. Why does an act of kindness, like giving a friend a job, so often just blow up in our faces? It's because the moment that money or power gets exchanged, you change the rules of the relationship. What was once a partnership of equals now has this huge imbalance. And that favor, no matter how well-intentioned, can start to feel condescending, and it creates a debt that can quickly sour into resentment. And these are the hidden dangers you have to watch out for. I mean, think about it. In a friendship, we often avoid arguments, right? We tell people what they want to hear. But in business or on a high-stakes project, you need unfiltered honesty. That favor you gave becomes a constant, unspoken burden. Gratitude is a really heavy emotion, and over time, it can curdle into envy. Your friend might start to think, you know what, I deserve this anyway, completely erasing your help from their mind. And then they see your continued success as a personal insult.
Machiavelli noticed this centuries ago. He observed that new leaders consistently found more loyalty from the people they were initially suspicious of. Why? Because those individuals had everything to prove. They were grateful for the opportunity and took absolutely nothing for granted, unlike a friend who might just feel entitled to it all along.
And all of this leads us to the final, really actionable insight of this law. It's all about learning to see your enemies not just as threats, but as a potential untapped goldmine of talent, loyalty, and ambition. So let's look at this concept, the pardoned enemy. This is someone who fully expects to be punished, but instead receives mercy and an opportunity. Their motivation is sky high. The gratitude is genuine, not like a friend who might have expected the favor all along. The relationship becomes purely professional. It's based on mutual interest, and it isn't contaminated by all the messy, complicated history of personal feelings.
And there's an unexpected benefit here, too. Enemies keep us sharp. A determined rival forces you to be disciplined, focused, and constantly improving. Friends, on the other hand, can actually soften us up. They often shield us from the hard truths, whereas an enemy will expose our weaknesses without a second thought, which is painful for sure, but an incredibly valuable service.
This is really the highest expression of the law, and it was captured perfectly by Abraham Lincoln. This isn't about being ruthless, it's about being profoundly strategic. The ultimate victory isn't in crushing your enemy. It's in transforming them into a willing and loyal ally. You neutralize a threat, and you gain a powerful asset in one single brilliant move.
And at the end of the day, that's the question this law forces us to ask. It demands that we look past our emotions and make a colder, more calculated assessment of human nature. When the stakes are truly high, who really has more to prove, the comfortable friend or the pardoned enemy? The answer might just determine your success or your survival.